Get ready for discovery at the 15th Annual Wisconsin Science Festival, October 16th through the 26th. Over 200 events at more than 150 venues throughout Wisconsin are set to inspire all ages with science, technology, and art. This year, they're featuring the theme of rock and roll as a nod to the music, motion, and geology that shapes Wisconsin. Activities include interactive experiments, live Q&As with scientists, and thought-provoking panels. To learn more about events near you, visit wiscifest.org. You're going to the Wisconsin Book Festival's fall celebration, right? It's our state's premier literary event of the year, and it's less than 2 weeks away. It's October 23rd through the 26th, so get planning and get reading, and we'll see you there. It's a public opportunity with more than 55 events where you can connect with authors and fellow book lovers at Madison Central Library and other downtown venues. It's accessible to everyone, and yes, there are even sometimes free book giveaways with signed copies available from renowned authors. Don't forget, the festival also hosts author programming all year round. So what are you waiting for? Go find the complete schedule at wisconsinbookfestival.org. This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today, it's the Friday News Roundup, and there's so much news to get to this week. Let's jump in. Joining me today to round up Madison's top stories is our executive producer, Haley Sperling. Hey, Haley.
Hi, Bianca. So much news.
So much. We had trouble narrowing it down on what we're going to bring, but we got the top stuff. And we're here with our newsletter editor, Rob Thomas. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Bianca.
It's nice to see everyone in person. We're back together, cozy for this fall season. As I said, okay, I'm not going to talk about the weather. That's very Midwest. We have lots of news. Haley, you're starting us off with news from the city.
Yes, we got news from the city. Other than the fact that it is starting to feel like fall, we do have to mention the weather. We are Midwestern. But I've got a whole host of news from the city this morning, so we're going to run through these. Let's start with the Office of the Independent Police Monitor. Y'all know that this is still the relatively new city office that's meant to bring more accountability and start a complaint process and share data-based decision-making for our police department. So this office has had its fair share of struggles, to put it mildly. We're not going to get too deep into those since we already have multiple shows about just that. But the news that I want to share today is that the Independent Monitor themselves, Robin Copley, announced her resignation from the position this week. In her resignation letter, she cited, quote, personal medical reasons as the main factor behind her decision to leave. She actually shared that she has PTSD and CPTSD caused by, quote, years of regular, indirect, yet in-depth exposure to graphic and violent police incidents. I would absolutely believe it. Her last day has already come and gone, so kind of wraps up this tenuous tenure, but also she laid a lot of groundwork for this office that did not exist only a few years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I feel for her a lot and recognize that it was a new thing. It's not an easy thing to do, to start something from the ground up, and something that is so across departments and needing to build trust and simultaneously struggling through, personal medical issues and mental health, and I feel for them, and I feel like all of you guys as journalists probably recognize that you can get secondhand trauma from observing stories of police violence and violence in the news. And I know I have my own personal ones. I know, Haley, you've shared about things that have happened to you as a journalist, and it's tough. It's tough being out in this world, and we're sending care to Robin and also recognizing that the office needs to carry forward. So it sounds like they're doing the best thing for the office and themselves.
And I remember in our conversation with the new police chief, he seems very open to the idea of that office. And so, as you said, Haley, the groundwork that she laid in that office, hopefully the next person will hit the ground running. I think they're looking for an interim monitor and then a permanent replacement after that, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're looking for an interim and then we'll go on to hire someone new. And, if you guys remember, there were some questions about whether or not Madison would even continue to fund an office of the independent monitor. And that was kind of, based on performance, based on a lot of questions that people had surrounding this office. But we do have a little bit more clarity on that end of things. The mayor released her 2026 operating budget this week, which includes maintained funding for the Office of the Independent Monitor. The $452 million budget that the mayor just announced is roughly $20 million more than this year's adopted budget. And overall, it seeks to add 24 positions to the city's workforce, and it includes a 3% cost of living raise for most city employees. So that's pretty neat. We love to see our folks getting paid. We're not going to go too deep into what's in the budget because, spoiler alert, we are actually going to have the Cap Times' Angiana Nardine on the show later to talk about exactly what's going on in the budget. So watch out for that. I also wanted to shout out that the Cap Times, they actually have a form open for anyone who has thoughts or questions on the mayor's proposed budget. So we'll put a link to that in our show notes so that you can ask your own questions, and hopefully, it'll make a more fun conversation for Angiana when she comes on the show. So again, I want to emphasize that this is a proposed budget. There's still time and space for negotiations, but some high-level highlights include, aside from this cost of living raise and new positions, there are no major cuts to city services, so that's pretty exciting to see, especially after a time when we had to vote to keep those things intact in past years. The mayor also wants to add a 10th ambulance for the fire department and 9 new paramedics to staff it. Sounds cool. Signs of growing city. She also outlined 8 library staff for the Imagination Center at Rindell Park and an additional $1 million in annual funding to the new men's homeless shelter at Bartolon Drive, which isn't enough to fully operationalize the center for 24/7 use. But to that extent, the city is really hoping that the county and other private funders and even potentially other municipalities in the area will step up to cover the rest. So that's a lot of information I just threw at you. But do you guys have any burning questions about the budget ahead of the conversation that we're going to have with Angiana?
Well, something that's jumping out to me is, last month we talked about the mayor releasing her executive capital budget and that it was actually, millions of dollars less than what the different departments were asking. So hearing that this is $20 million more than last year seems like there are just some shifting priorities. So if there's any differences between the two budgets or any surprises, so it's kind of interesting.
One thing I want to know is how state funding has affected this budget, because we know in past years, municipalities like Madison have complained that the state is not sending a fair share of dollars back to cities. It sounded like they got more this year than they had in the past, and I'm just wondering what that paid for.
Yeah, shared revenue. We love shared revenue, right? And we even talked about this on the show a while back, but the city had hired that more conservative leaning lobbying firm to go and lobby for more money. So hopefully a mix of that move plus the property tax referendum that we passed has kind of tided us over for a little bit. And the city is looking for ways, I think, to become a little bit more sustainable in its budgetary practices here. So that's something kind of exciting to see. And so I wanted to highlight a little bit on the funding for this new men's shelter. This is coming at a time when a lot of folks in the city are talking about homelessness, particularly following the closure of the Dairy Drive tiny house encampment. We had Madison Street Medicine Executive Director Brenda Conkle on the show not too long ago to talk about Dairy Drive. So take a listen to that if you haven't yet. But there's been some development since that conversation. Back in September, city council members voted to officially shut down the site. It was a pretty narrow vote. This would have extended their contract with Madison Street Medicine temporarily into next spring. But at the end of the day, 10 alders voted to keep that, 9 voted to proceed with the planned demolition, and 1 abstained. So ultimately that measure failed because it needed 11 votes to pass. And that move has left a lot of housing advocates really frustrated with the council for deciding to shut down a project that was pretty objectively working. A couple of dozen protesters showed up the night of September 30th when council was talking about this decision to demand them to reconsider their vote on Dairy Drive. And this led to a bit of a clash between the protesters and the council people, specifically District 8 Alder MGR Govindarajan and the protesters from the Dane County Homeless Justice Initiative. He spoke with those folks after the vote, and there was talk of him potentially reconsidering his vote. But ultimately, he came out with a statement later saying that he said what he said to the protesters about reconsidering under duress and that he is standing by his vote to shut down Dairy Drive. And so then the group issued their own statement saying that they felt pretty duped and they're feeling frustrated with this council member who has positioned himself to be a housing forward candidate. And so there's just a lot of back and forth happening, I think, between the city, between these protesters about what it means to actually care for our community's unhoused population, which, as we know, is only growing as our city continues to grow and as our housing continues to be unaffordable. So, yeah, there's a lot going on with this. I'm curious, have you guys read up on this story at all?
Yeah, I mean, it was also all over my Facebook feed. It was pretty jarring to hear a council member say that they were afraid for their safety, and I think that this is just indicative of the tension rising. Like, the rents are rising, needs are rising, our city's growing, and people really clashing for where the rubber meets the road on where we're putting our resources and like getting on the same page of what our values are as a city and if we're following through with that. And I think, that's probably being felt across the board.
Yeah, I saw that video after I read his statement. And yeah, I mean, tensions are running high, but that's not okay to make somebody feel threatened like that. Like he said, he felt he had to basically placate things out of fear for himself, for his, people around him. And so, while I understand the sincere motives behind, protesting peacefully, there is a line, especially in this day and age in America, you do not want to cross that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, though, to the extent that the protesters, they were also pretty frustrated with the statement that MGR put out after the fact, saying that, he felt unsafe and whatnot, because from their perspective, and having watched the video from my perspective, it was a tense conversation, but overall pretty calm, right? And so I don't know. It really comes down to how everyone perceives these different situations. But clearly, this is going to be an issue that is only going to become, I think, pushed further into the forefront. And so obviously, Dairy Drive, the folks who live there have already been moved out. So I think the question is just, again, how do alders talk to constituents? How do they stand firm in their beliefs? And then how can we work together when we also are under these budgetary constraints? Because, not to go off on a whole tangent here, but, protesters are saying, why are we spending more money on cops? Why are we doing this? We can cut money from here to give money to that. This puts the city into a whole tense situation with the state, because we could face ramifications for that. We could lose out on state funding if we cut money from police budgets. So that's a very, very high level sort of walkthrough of what's going on here. But this is definitely something that we're going to be watching in the future for sure.
And I can't help but think about, how we started the segment talking about the police independent monitor, and on MGR's behalf, I'm just know how many times I felt like I've had to smile in someone's face to feel safe. He is a person of color, and, recognizing the many dynamics of them, putting themselves forward on this council and what's possible and what they can do. It's rough. So be kind. Let's treat everyone with humanity and respect and dignity, and ideally everyone feels safe, so keep that up. Also, I'll say that anxiety is not just happening at the city level, it's also happening at our state's public higher education system. So we're going to talk about that, but before we do, let's take a quick break. Remember that weird sound your furnace made last winter? The one you hoped wouldn't get worse? Hope's not a great heating strategy. Not in Wisconsin. By December, the phones ring nonstop, everyone's furnace decides to quit at the same time, emergency calls, big repair bills, long wait lists, all when your family needs heat most. Right now, Cardinal Heating is offering $1,000 off a new furnace and AC system, but only until October 31st. And there's up to $2,600 in federal rebates and tax credits you could qualify for, but those expire at the end of 2025. This isn't just a deal, it's peace of mind. When it's 5 degrees outside, you'll be warm and relaxed because you took care of it now. Visit cardinalservice.com and schedule your free estimate. The last good deal of the year is right now, before the cold, before the panic, before prices rise. It was a dark and stormy night, and you were caught on Hallows Eve without a costume. The horror! Are you ready for Halloween? You could buy something new, but why would you when you could get something spectacular and unique at a low cost at your local St. Vinny's? St. Vincent de Paul Madison has it all. Halloween accessories, wigs, shoes, and more for your DIY costume. They've got Halloween costumes for the whole family, including kids and pets. And speaking from personal experience, I found incredible sequenced dresses, bespoke blazers, and dramatic fashion accents for costumes there. St. Vinny's is my go-to for finding an outfit item that's kind of tricky that I don't have for my costume. Plus, if you need any Halloween yard decorations, perhaps you have to haunt up a haunted house, they got you. By the way, while you're there, why not get a jumpstart on your holiday shopping? St. Vinny's gift cards make for the perfect present for any occasion. Go secure your costume. Head on over to Madison St. Vinny's today. So UW-Madison is into their fall semester, and some controversy is going down at the school right now around perceived threats to the institution's decades-long running undergraduate ethnic studies requirement. So what's going on? The UW system recently released a proposal to standardize required core general ed courses across the system to drop into 6 core categories, none of which explicitly include or refer to ethnic studies. And some upset UW-Madison students and faculty are speaking out saying, hey, this move is cracking the door wide open to imperiling the ethnic studies credit. I'm going to flag there's a lot of differences in opinion on what parts of the story should get focus and attention. The devil is definitely in the details here. I will share from UW-Madison's perspective, their spokesperson, Mark Pitch, has been telling news outlets that this draft proposal is simply for allowing a seamless transfer process for students across the system. That's in line with the state biennial budget that they made agreements on, and that this draft doesn't eliminate UW-Madison's requirement or any UW campus's ability to set a requirement. But there's still a lot of anxiety. The song Anxiety, It's Taken Over Me, is in my mind. Y'all, what do you think about this situation?
I think the optics on this are rough, no matter which way you spin it. I do understand UW saying that we want to make this a simple transition, right? Especially now with the whole direct admission to UW schools across the board, you know, like hopefully more kids are going to UW schools throughout the system. But then if they want to transfer into UW, because it still is UW-Madison being, it still is a little bit more competitive to get into that one, they want to expedite that process. Totally get that. This also does seem to me to be like complying in advance, you know, when we see these higher education systems across the country either bending the knee or not to the Trump administration, just across the board. It's a little bit frightening to see. So I think like that's the undertone. For me, it's almost like no matter what UW does here, the system and UW-Madison, I think they just have to know that that is the context of which they are making these decisions and that everything looks like something else, right?
Student and faculty sort of shining a light on things like that, even if they're just potential things, I'm not mad about it because that kind of vigilance and not letting things happen in the shadows is how you fight against things like that complying in advance. You don't make it easy. And if there was a mistake made and it has to be corrected and something was a little too premature, great, we can clarify that. But you don't want to wait until it's irreversible to point it out.
Totally. And I think that's the thing. UW-Madison spokesperson Mark Pitch said, quote, "The universities of Wisconsin through the Board of Regents do not require ethnic studies or cultural diversity courses. Individual universities currently have discretion in this area, and that autonomy is not subject to change." So they're saying, just so you know, just to clarify, we do not have that requirement in the first place at the system level, and universities can set that, and that autonomy is not subject to change. That said, the regents made a lot of concessions to the state around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that hypervigilance and recognizing, like, what does this mean? You're making a step to comply with that biennial budget where you also agreed to getting rid of so many things that are supporting diversity at the school. Why should we think that this isn't one step closer to more changes down the line? And, the anxiety makes sense. Like, just last week, there were reports that UW-Madison cut its DEI office for their own HR department. It feels like it's a potential slow drip. And in terms of the folks who are speaking out, the Associated Students of Madison were speaking out. I know Afro-Am department sent out a newsletter this Tuesday asking supporters to fill out a testimonial on behalf of the Ethnic Studies credit. And the United Faculty and Academic Staff, UFAS, which we recently had their president on the show, was urging folks to voice their concerns on this. And I remember in that conversation, him saying, we are not being consulted on these changes on a system level. Like, we are the people who are carrying out this work. We set the curriculum, and these changes are coming from the top, and we're not being consulted and want this to be a more democratic process. So I think folks speaking their mind before anything comes down makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, students, speak up. Like, I want to hear from more students. I want to hear from more faculty from this, right? Because they are the ones that are directly impacted by this, and they are the ones who will set the tone for how the university and how the system responds. Let's hear it.
Yeah, and the word currently in the statements is the word that really stands out to me, that the universities currently have that power. Like, anything could change, and looking at the water they're in, what's already happened, there's no reason for folks to be blind to sort of changes that are coming down. So definitely a lot of focus on this. I do want to say, the system for transferring for students is something kind of tricky to navigate. And a lot of students across Wisconsin, I can speak from my experience. I had friends who, okay, you won't necessarily get into UW-Madison, but you're going to put your 2 years in at your local community college. And then if you have something like a little bit strange, you've been planning for 2 years to get into Madison, and now you're not going to be able to. And people are taking out loans. Like, people are building this process thinking across the state, I could possibly get to the flagship university. So, making the system more easeful is also a laudable thing. But the devil's in the details here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so there's lots of energy. We're talking about anxiety. What do you do with anxiety? You cheer and you turn it into excitement. Let's talk about the fact that UW-Madison's homecoming is this weekend. We're going to talk about that some, and also that streets are going to be closed. So not to bring anxiety, but we're going to get to that in a second. Let's first take a quick break. Y'all, it's time. Time to invest in some good tea and vibes for this cozy and reflective fall season. A great place to check out is Telsan Tea, located in downtown Mount Horeb. They offer over 160 flavors of tea and herbs, and the different ways to make it. Their store is full of rich smells with tea samples to open, explore, and see the beautiful colors and ingredients. It's a grounding sensory experience. Speaking of experiences, they've got events, including a tea blending workshop coming very soon. On Saturday, October 18th and Sunday, October 19th, you can attend their Make and Take Chai Drop-In workshop. It's a hands-on workshop where you'll learn how to make authentic chai from scratch, using traditional spices and loose-leaf tea. Each ticket includes your very own batch of freshly made chai, a tea tin, labels, and recipes. Tickets can be purchased in advance or at the door the day of the workshop. If you want to register or shop, head to telsan.com. That's TELSAAN.com. Homecoming, beep, beep. Rob,
Yes.
to you.
Yeah, homecoming is this weekend. I guess the only anxiety is whether they're going to beat the Iowa Hawkeyes. And this season's been pretty anxious for Badgers fans. But before the game, Friday is the big homecoming parade, and there will be some streets closed. Langdon will be closed all day between North Park and North Lake Streets, and portions of Langdon, Wisconsin, West Gilman, and northbound North Lake Street will be closed kind of that late afternoon, early evening time when the actual parade's going to take place. And we'll put a link to the map of all these routes in our show notes so people can see the route. But the bottom line is, leave your worries behind, park your cars, line the parade route, and root for the Badgers, right?
Go Badge.
It's so fun. It's a lot of energy and positive energy. And I want to call it, we brought back a conversation that we had with DJ Nick Nice last year about homecoming. And it's a lot of fun and a good guide if you don't know where to go tailgating and what the culture is like. But I remember Nick actually said that Iowa fans are really lovely. Maybe there's going to be some kumbaya in the streets. Well, it depends on how the game goes, I suppose. But before the game.
I believe it. And I remember that conversation, Nick made the point that tailgating is not just for hard partiers. There's family oriented ones and, all up and down Reach Street, every tailgate has kind of its own character. So that's a really fun conversation.
I remember, I think I said that, it gets wholesome. And then he's like, I don't know if I'd go that far. Yeah. A lot of drinking.
A lot of drinking. Do you guys know, fun fact, I was in the homecoming parade one year. Back when, oh God, what was his name? The Badger or the Madtown Hopper. Do you guys remember that? The guy with the really big hair who would drive people around in his little light up XL golf cart. I swear to God, this is real.
It's real. I'm looking at it right now. I recognize this man. This person. I didn't.
It was when I was working for the Badger Herald, and I guess one of our ad guys was close with the guy who did the Hopper, and so he took us in the Hopper in the parade, and it was honestly core memory for me right there.
That makes sense. Homecoming parade queen, Haley Sperling.
I bet you did the queenly wave.
Yes, a lot of elegant.
I can imagine that. Yeah. So speaking of street closings, we have one that's not quite as celebratory, although it's going to be massive, and that's the John Nolan Drive project, which starts on Monday. I drove in on John Nolan Drive for the recording this morning, and the orange barrels are all lining the street. So they're ready. They're ready to go. Do you guys use John Nolan? Is that part of your daily drive, really?
I don't drive daily, but I'll say at least 4 times a week. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a big unfortunately, yes.
I like the lakes. I like driving on it, but it sounds like it's about to get gruesome.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous way to enter the city. If I have visitors, that's usually how I take them in. But it's going to be rough. Yeah. During construction, traffic's going to be reduced to 1 lane in each direction between Lakeside Street and Broome Street. North Shore Drive and Broome Street will also be reduced to 1 lane each direction at that part where they intersect with John Nolan. The southbound left turn from Broome Street onto John Nolan Drive will be closed for the duration of the project, which goes until summer 2027.
No.
So
don't say that.
Yeah. And on top of that, there's going to be lots of overnight full closures of northbound John Nolan Drive and the Capital City Trail to allow for storm sewer installation. So it's going to be a headache. Especially between those peak morning hours and the peak afternoon time when it's already pretty clogged there. Last Friday, I went to Atwood Music Hall and I took John Nolan. I was thinking okay, how would I go after Monday. And so I think everybody has to be kind of thinking about those alternate routes of where they want to get from point A to point B, because it's a pretty central road. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Highway M, that's my hot tip. We talked about that in one of our past like Madison Hacks conversations.
I think that was Rob's tip.
Was that yours?
Yeah.
Yeah. Highway M.
Highway to the danger zone. Highway M. No, just kidding. I do want to say John Nolan needs it. Yeah. I cannot with driving on. It's like bow, ba, da, bow, 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 bow. Like it is so bumpy. It's time. It's time, y'all.
Yeah, it's not much better when you're on your bike on that path too. Those bridges are so narrow. Like I'm amazed I haven't hit a pedestrian or, it's so tight. And I was looking in the bridge rails are so rusty. It's not the best way to introduce people to the city. And I mean, they're really going to transform John Nolan. As I said, the intersections at Broome Street and Lakeside Street in particular, which can always be a headache. They're going to redoing the roads, redoing the pedestrian paths and the bridges. And so the kind of the broad outlines of the project is from next week until next summer, they're going to move traffic to the northbound lanes while they work on the southbound lanes. And then around next summer, they're going to switch. And then the traffic will move to the southbound lanes while they work on the northbound lanes. So that means starting next summer, the Capital City Bike Trail will be completely closed for a year. And they're going to reroute all that bike and pedestrian traffic around Monona Bay. So it's going to be a major thing. And the one thing that is kind of interesting is like, why are they starting this in the fall? Because like summer is construction season in Madison, right? I mean, that's when we celebrate road construction is in the summer. Well,
yeah, we honor the construction guys.
That's right.
Come on.
I saw a city engineer say the big difference is the bridges, and that while they can't work on roadways when it's below freezing, they can work on the structure of those bridges. So that's what they're going to be focusing on when it gets really cold. So it's like a big project. There's a lot of moving parts. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of temporary closures, and the city has set up a web page where you can kind of follow along for updates, and we'll keep people updated on the newsletter and in the podcast, like when stuff gets shut down entirely. But hopefully summer 2027, we're going to look at our brand new John Nolan Drive and say, wow, that was all worth it.
Yes.
So we're 2027, baby. We're coming. I mean, this is also like the very first step, though, to the Monona waterfront redesign, basically, too. I mean, none of that is set in stone. Of course, we have these new amazing, beautiful designs and these beautiful renderings that have boat launches and amphitheaters and all this awesome stuff. But it's like, to get there, we got to shut down the roads for almost 2 years. It's going to suck. Will it be worth it? I mean, also, we need to secure the funding for Monona redesign. We don't need to get into that. But yeah, I think it'll be worth it. Like you said, Rob, this is the drive to take people in. I feel like it's when Madison, at least to me, feels the most imposing, but I mean that in a good way, right? It's so beautiful in the morning, in the nighttime. And now we'll just get to spend more time in traffic between those beautiful lakes, right? You got to find the bright side.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we're constantly talking about Madison is growing and we want better things. That's what we talk about on the show constantly. And growing means growing pains. And so we all have to get a little bit more robust or sturdy to deal with that. We're Wisconsin. If you're here in Wisconsin, you're sturdy. Let's get sturdier. And Rob, when you said you almost ran someone over on your bike, I have been run over by a bike on
you.
Langdon Street. I've been waiting to bring this up, Rob. You ran me down. No, someone ran me over on Langdon Street on the sidewalk. And so it does happen. Also, why were they biking on the sidewalk? They were so sweet. I had to comfort them. But I think the word of the day for all these street closures and the changes, just like be more vigilant and keep listening to CityCast Madison because we'll keep you updated. And shout out to all the construction workers who put their bodies on the line. This work is hard. Speaking of shout outs, we've got neighbor shout outs, and we're just wrapped up. You might have noticed our fall membership campaign. I want to take a minute to give a huge thank you and say how grateful we are to everyone who stepped up to support us these past few weeks. And of course, everyone who's been supporting us, all of our neighbors. And your words of encouragement really kept us going, even when we weren't sure if we were going to hit our goal. But y'all, we did it. We did it.
Yeah, we did. More than 95 people joined our Neighbors program in this campaign. We're so stoked to have you guys on board. It felt so good to hit that goal. Thank you to our new members and those of you who've been with us all along. I mean, that's what keeps us going. A special shout out to a couple of our brand new members, Barb S. and Bobby S., who just joined up. Y'all literally keep this show going and this newsletter going. And for those of you who don't know, haven't been clued in, CityCast Madison Neighbors is the name of our membership program. For $10 a month or $100 a year, you can support our work and get some sweet, sweet perks. Like the members-only newsletters that I write every week, ad-free podcast listening, exclusive invites to our events. And the big one, this is the last call for tote bags, our new member-exclusive Neighbors Make Madison tote bags. And if you sign up today, as in Friday, today, sorry, I stole your thunder there, Bianca.
Your thunder can be
I feel
shared.
like that's copyrighted.
No.
You'll get one of those tote bags.
Heck yeah. Yeah, we gotta promo the tote. And another one of those perks, as you guys might be aware, is getting to shout out something or someone on this podcast and in the newsletter. And I've got a couple of neighborhood shout outs to share today. This first one is from Catherine M. She's shouting out the Monona Grove Nursery School. It's a play-based preschool that's been around since 1958. And they are still doing amazing work with kids and families as a parent co-op on Madison's East Side. Very east side of you, parent co-op. She says they're currently fundraising after having to move to a new space after 50 plus years. So shout out to Monona Grove Nursery School.
Oh, go, you go. Yeah, I know some folks who have their kids there. That's really a lovely shout out.
I mean, think about how many generations of kids went to that school since 1958. That's incredible.
It's so awesome. We have another shout out from another Catherine, this time with a C. But it's Catherine S. She is shining some light on the Autism Society of South Central Wisconsin. She says they provide support, education, and social opportunities for autistic people, families, caregivers, and the community. And I think that is also an amazing shout out. Shout out to all of those people in that community and the folks who are doing the work and just the families in general. Everyone deserves a little bit of love.
Speaking for myself, but anyone can jump in. Being on all of the spectrums of the neurospicy, heck yeah, go Auts. Yeah, we love our shout outs and we love all of you neighbors. Thank you for helping us meet our goal one more time. You get a respite. We're not going to mention this again, except for at the end of each episode. So you remember, if you haven't signed up, where to go. Y'all, that was a great Friday News Roundup. Lots of news, lots of love. And thanks for joining me as always, Haley Sperling. See you later.
Lots of love. See you later.
Rob Thomas, thanks so much for running me over on your bike.
I'll be more careful next time. Now that I know it's you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. We're produced by Jade Isiri Ramos and Zoe Culkin. Haley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Additional music this week by DM, Fab Claxton, David Harris, G. Ronan, Mooncrest, Toby Ann, and Camille Trust from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. You can get more news delivered right to your inbox, like those specifics on the road closures we discussed, by subscribing to Madison Minutes. Don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you enjoyed today's show, why not share this episode with a badger or a bicyclist or someone who drives in Madison? Literally everyone. As a note, we'll be off on Monday for Indigenous Peoples Day, so we will be seeing you back here on Tuesday morning with more stories from around the city. So until then, have a great long weekend and take good care.